Hi, everybody. Hal Humphreys here with PI Education. This is the PI Education Monthly Webinar. I'm joined today by Tim Santoni. Tim is an investigator out of California. He focuses primarily on, workers' compensation, counterfeiting, and other civil cases. Tim and I have known of each other for a couple of years. We've interacted on email several times. I like Tim. He has written for Pursuit Magazine on a number of occasions, and we always like getting content from Tim because, well, he's smart and he knows what he's talking about. This month at PI Education, we're talking about business development. And, you know, in one of my weekly briefings that we started doing this year, I talked about business development as an idea. What does it even mean? What does business development mean? It can mean a number of things. It can mean just straight up advertising, pay for clicks, that kind of business. It can also mean working on the business of your business, like taking care of the actual day-to-day business parts. And that's one of the things that I've always had a hard time with. I want to remind everybody, we aren't lawyers. Tim, you may be a lawyer. I don't know.
No.
But I'm certainly not an attorney. So if you have legal questions, call your lawyer. We're not offering legal advice. The things we say here are just to try and share information and try and share tips and tricks for private investigators so we can all be better investigators. We're not offering legal advice. Got to be painfully clear about that. Tim, do you mind to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, Hal, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share the message, and I'm kind of passionate about helping investigators and the industry as a whole elevate themselves. So I've been involved in the investigation business since 2001, family-owned business. 2001, we acquired a company called National Trademark Investigations with an IP-specific focus. And I worked in the business, learned the business, worked doing surveillance and field work and statements and in-house research and trademark investigations and undercover buys. And I kind of learned the practice hands-on from my dad and from the former owners of National Trademark Investigations. Really had the opportunity to be exposed to clients and cases in a variety of jurisdictions and variety of courts, and became passionate about kind of the legal side. As Hal mentioned, we're not lawyers, but we work with lawyers, and we have to understand the justice process, both on the criminal side and the civil side, and all the different administrative courts that we handle cases within. So litigation investigations is kind of the theme, and having admissible evidence that sticks. And my goal when I took over the business and running the business and owning the business in 2011-ish was to really change the industry and do that through elevating the way that we do and the way that we conduct ourselves as investigators, how we interact, how we talk, how we look. And then in 2011-ish, that's when I launched our pre-employment background screening division and really helping clients help mitigate risk in the hiring process. We always get involved after the fraud, the embezzlement, the counterfeiting, supply chain issues. And that's great, right? Those are the fun, juicy cases that investigators are really adept at handling. But I wanted to help business owners mitigate risk in their practices by using an investigator's mindset and give them and share with them some things that we learned that go awry. Businesses are moving fast and they are trying to do a variety of different things. And sometimes they're overlooked for, not because they're bad businesses, but just because the time and the resources aren't there. And so really like to, again, on the background screening side of the business, the compliance is significant. So understanding the legal jargon, the FCRA and the state compliance has really been beneficial because there's so much more compliance in background screening than there is in investigations in some regards. So that's kind of how we got here today. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, I think, the marketing and other little things that I've kind of implemented and tried along the way in developing the business and growing the brand and trying to share the messages that I think are important.
Very good. Cool. So we, Tim and I worked on kind of an outline of things we're going to talk about today. And Tim, I will just warn you, I am notorious for going off script. So that may happen here and that's okay. But I have approached marketing from what some people have said is a little bit of a different way of doing it. I'm a sole proprietor. I'm a sole operator. And I have not spent a lot of time doing internet-based marketing, I've spent most of my time going and meeting the attorneys that I want to work with. And that is one way to do it. And I've talked about that kind of ad nauseum over the years. So today, number one, how do you feel about that kind of marketing, that super targeted? I want to work with this guy. So you find out as much as you can about them and you go, put yourself in front of them. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all about relationships. It's all about how you get to know people, and everyone is different in the way that they initiate contact. Some people are super comfortable, like maybe Hal, where you're, hey, I've targeted this group of attorneys in different segments and different types of attorneys in different regions, and I'm going to go knock on their door or set up coffee or lunch. What I found, being in California, there's a ton of attorneys. There's a ton of investigators. And my thought is that face-to-face meetings and roundtables would be the best way to get in front of those attorneys. And the challenges that I've kind of seen is that attorneys work by the billable hour, right? And they're billing much more than typically an investigator would. And so time away from their billable hour is difficult. So strategically, breakfast, lunch, maybe dinner, or off hours things is the way to do what Hal's talking about as a strategy, because their time is super valuable. And especially associates and people are trying to make partner, they've got minimum billables and they've got to meet those. But at the same time, you've got to fight for that face time because they're entrusting you with their business, with their clients. And if you mess up, it's a bad reference on them. And they're not going to easily just turn over their cases and their clients to you, despite how great you think you are, or what case you just helped out with, or the last case that you did for them that was really good. And you cannot assume that they're going to remember you and trust you. You've got to stay in front of them. So there's a fine balance. There's a lot of strategies you can utilize, but I'm with how I think that FaceTime, and whether it's FaceTime or phone calls or whatever it is, but you've got to really be targeted and focused, because you can go crazy trying to set up meetings with attorneys in my experience.
Yeah, you can. And it can be a total time suck. When I was first starting my business in Texas, I had some other business in Dallas that took me there, and I was going to be there anyway. So I would call an attorney in Lubbock, Texas, and I would say, hey, I'm going to be in town tonight. If you'd like to have a cocktail, I'd like to buy you one. And if he said, man, I'm really busy in the middle of trial, can't do it, I'd say, okay, fine. But if he said, yeah, that'd be great, I would rent a car and drive out to Lubbock, which is a good, 3.5, 4 hour drive, buy him a cocktail, stay in a hotel, and then drive back the next morning. It's a very expensive and inefficient way to market. And we've already got John Latcher on our YouTube channel asking, I would like to talk about marketing. So let's get back to the script and talk about marketing. And the first thing on the script is email. So tell me a little bit about how you approach email.
Yeah. So, I mean, the premise is that marketers ruin everything, right? So the fact that email open rates are on the decline, it's not a back in the days where, everyone had AOL and there's 90% open rates on email, and that was the way to get people's attention. It's harder and harder to get emails through to the right eyeballs, but we utilize an email marketing platform and doing it compliantly. We use MailChimp.
Okay.
And really, when it comes down to it, I think that it's not so much about email or not email, but it's what content you're delivering that's bringing value. So we do not send out an email blast. We typically do one newsletter a month with some other things that may be in there, and nothing in our email has anything to do with our services, our pricing, our offerings, if you will. It's highlighting clients. It's talking about topics that are relevant to them. I have a YouTube show where I interview a lot of people that we work with called the Santoni Spotlight. We're highlighting other things and other people, and the feedback we've gotten from that is that people stay on our list and they like it and they look forward to it. The challenge is to be, whether you're in person, like Hal drives out to Lubbock and talks to a criminal defense attorney or whatever, he's got to be relevant to that attorney at that time. That email marketing blast, if you're doing all these different things, that criminal defense attorney might be totally not interested because he doesn't care about skip traces for the collection industry in Florida, right? And he's going to unsubscribe. So you really have to, I think, use email to build relationships and customize your audiences. So one of the things that we're working on is customize email audiences. We have specific messaging for specific audiences. So if you're doing, insurance defense, you better be talking about insurance defense. If you're talking about IP, you better talk about IP. And you got to be relevant. If you're doing family law, you got to have a track on family law. Just as if you would be presenting to them in their office, or if you met them at a restaurant or a bar or a networking event, you got to be relevant. So I think relevancy is way, way more important. And people, in today's day and age, when you go online, you look at something on Amazon, you're immediately going to get retargeted with all the different platforms showing you what you want to see. And that's what we've grown accustomed to. And so whether we like it or not, that's where our heads go.
Yeah. And, the idea of relevancy and being there when they need you, that's a difficult equation to kind of get your head around, but there's a balance. If you send out too many emails, people will either unsubscribe or just delete on a regular basis and never actually go to your content. If you send the right number or not, if you don't send enough, they just don't notice it. There's a balance that you have to kind of get there. And Tim, do you look at metrics to kind of see what people engage with and what they don't engage with and dial down your message that way?
Yeah, it's a good point. So the metrics are important. Like you say, open rates are one thing, but we're looking at engagement. Who's clicking on what? We can tell, are they looking at videos? They want pictures? Are they clicking through to a website? What is it they like? And tailor your content to what people like and what they see, and what, as opposed to the opposite, until you can find what it is that they're clicking on. Super, super important. And also remind that most law firms are getting hit with tons and tons of emails. So if you're a target market or attorneys, be aware that it's difficult to get through their filters, even just with regular email. I had a case yesterday, law firm had us totally blocked until they opened their filters. And one other point I wanted to mention is that email marketing, in order to do email marketing, you got to start building a list. In order to build a list, you have to have some sort of Excel or CRM or whatever. But one email a month can be valuable. Lawyers are notorious for moving from firm to firm to firm. So one of the most valuable tools that we get, the data we get back is, hey, Joe Smith left this firm. He's no longer here. Oh, then we can go to LinkedIn, other places, and find out where he did go and connect with him there. So it's an account management tool that's at your fingertips.
Right.
And then, by the way, when they're out of office, you get an out of office, because every lawyer has an out of office with all their assistant and everyone else in their department. Guess what? It's lead gen, because now you have 2 or 3 more people that you didn't know about just by sending that email and getting that out of office. So there's a lot of different things that go along with email marketing beyond just the messaging and sending it.
Yeah, and the messaging and send it. So we've got content and the things that we're going to send out to the people, but we have to have people to send it to. And I'm glad you touched on building that list, because at the end of the day, your email list is, if you're using email for marketing, your email list is the key. It's the thing. So how do you go about getting new people into that funnel?
That is the trick, right? So our philosophy has always been that we're not going to spam, we're not going to buy lists, we're not going to send email blasts and things to people that we don't know or haven't done business with. So we build our list through our known and active clients, through lead gen on our website, which is a very small portion of it, and through speaking and networking. People that actually opt in and say, hey, I want to be on your list, or I want to be, even our referral partners, we don't even put on our email list, because we respect the fact that they're referring people to us. And until we're engaging with them directly, we're not even putting them on there. So very careful about that. But I mean, you really, I mean, we'll probably touch on it. I mean, from LinkedIn to networking in person, to social media, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, to your lead gen pages on your website. But another thing is that, most of the time the attorneys and paralegals involved in a case, most of the time there's 2, 3, 4, 5 people on each case. And every time they submit a new case, there's 3 or 4 new people to enter onto your list. That know you, that are working with you, if this is a warm relationship. And so, it's self-propelling. And again, I'm always trying to accelerate that, but being mindful of the fact that be respectful of people's time and space, and people's inboxes. It's a valuable piece of real estate, and be careful.
Yeah, it is. And it's so valuable. Number one, getting the people into that email list is difficult. Once you get them there, you do not want to lose them. You want to be respectful of their time. You want to be respectful of what it is they need. And you need to know kind of, does MailChimp allow you to segment your audience?
It does. It does.
Okay.
They keep changing the name, but in essence, you can segment your audience or your groups by tags, and you can have a criminal defense group, you can have a civil litigation group, you can have a family law, or you can have your personal contacts. And then you can send your targeted campaigns to those audiences. So
right. Do you keep up with Brian Willingham at all?
Yes.
Okay. Brian Willingham, Brian and I are good friends. We've known each other for several years. I like to brag on Brian because I think he's one of those guys out there in our business that is doing a really good job of being transparent and sharing his work, what he does, who he works with, that kind of business. But he's very careful about sending out emails.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know Brian well. I've had him on my Spotlight show. I respect what he does. He spends a lot of time developing written content and articles and research, and really does a good job of driving targeted eyeballs to his pages. And I think he speaks the truth. He doesn't sugarcoat things, which I can appreciate, and does a good job. But yeah, when it comes to email, I think you really have to deliver value. It's like any platform. You need to be on topic, be able to get people's attention. The medium you select, whatever it might be, is just the delivery mechanism. That's all it is.
Yeah, and you've got to have something incredibly useful for the people that you're talking to, something that they can chew on and bite and use right then, right there. Somebody, Andy Adams, posted on the YouTube channel, building brand awareness is important. Getting clients to know that, in quotes, "I'm here when you need me" is an approach. And at the end of the day, that's pretty much all we can do is say, "Hey, I'm here when you need me." I have taken that a step further, and on my list of people that I interact with that are attorneys, I've got a kind of a rotating calendar. I haven't talked to so-and-so, and I haven't talked to Bill in 2 or 3 months. I'll call Bill and catch him. Is this a good time to talk? Yeah, it is. Or no, it's not. If it's not, I'll call you back. But if he says, yes, it is, we'll just have a catch up. What's going on? How you been? What are you working on? Do you need anything? And that one question, anything I can do for you, ends up almost always getting me some amount of business from that person. So that's another way to reach out and touch someone, so to speak.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the next thing on our list is company website. How important is a website?
I mean, in today's day and age, people are making decisions about whether they're going to call you, hire you, you're the right person before they reach out, right? So it's the first impression at all points. And so, again, I think the website is a crucial point. It's your digital footprint. It's what people are going to, whether it's true, untrue, well done, it's where people look. And they're going to do a lot of research, especially associate attorneys. They're going to scour the site and they're going to look around and they're going to know everything about you before they reach out. So it's from that perspective, it needs to look and it needs to feel professional. It needs to represent you. I think that they're buying us. It's intangible, right? They're not buying Hal's report. They're buying what Hal does and what kind of evidence and information he brings, and the relationship and how you communicate. And so, and you need to really illustrate how you make their life easier. We live in a one-touch world. We click a button and food and goods are delivered to our house the next day. And so you got to make it really easy for them, right? No extra brain cells wasted trying to figure out what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you get a chance to listen to my interview with Jason Pfeiffer from Inc. magazine?
I have not.
Okay, so one of the things that we talked about, again, ad nauseum, we went on and on about the website, and Jason pointed out that as human beings, as consumers, and for us, our mostly attorneys are the consumers that are buying our services, right? They're looking at that website and they're making decisions about whether or not to hire you using that website. If it's professional, if it looks good, you've cleared the first hurdle. If you can write and you've got blog content that is grammatically correct, well spelled, that kind of business, just paying attention to the details, then you've cleared that hurdle, right? But if they hop onto your website and it looks like MySpace from 1995 or whatever, they're probably not going to click much further. If you were looking for someone to help you out with a website, we talked about this a little bit earlier, who would you recommend? Say Reuben Morel, say Reuben Morel, say Reuben Morel.
Yeah, I mean, Reuben out of Texas, investigator marketing. But again, we've done website revisions 4, 5, 6, 7 times, right? What Reuben does well is he understands the messaging the investigator needs to have, and what it needs. There's certain components, core components of a website. But I think that as investigators, we tend to be very detail oriented and very caught up in the what we know between our ears and how great we are, and that's awesome. But people on a website aren't so much concerned about that until they even understand if you're the right person for them. They're going to come to learn that as they work with you. So there's a fine line, and Reuben understands what that looks like. And again, he talks about, where's your niche? Is it regional? What type of work? Don't be everything to everybody. You don't need to have a digital encyclopedia on your website. Keep it simple. Does a really good job. And then from there, keeping it updated, adding that content, putting good blog content, adding different photos and videos and things to it that are relevant, is crucial. So yeah, I definitely can attest to Reuben, and strategically, because the website again is just a platform. What he can help you do is actually get the messaging right, and get the, and drive what you're looking for, which is business. You don't care if you get 1,000 views on your page in a week. You care if you get 3 or 4 new cases, right? That are going to put money in your bank. That's the most important thing. And I think people get confused between metrics. Even Brian Willingham had a great, he put out he offered up for sale, or not even for sale, he's giving away one of his blog pages. And he said, look, this page drives, I don't know, thousands of views a month, but it delivers absolutely zero business. I'll give you the text, the tags, the code, you can have it. I don't want it anymore, because he doesn't want to drive eyeballs and inquiries and leads and phone calls for stuff that's not going to drive business. And so I think that's a great illustration of what we're talking about, which is, you got to have a good website. It has got to be relevant, and it's going to got to drive calls and emails that actually are things you can make money at or do well. And if not, it's a distraction, because you got to answer your phone. You got to return your emails if you want that website to work. So don't get 200 phone calls about, cell pings. Unless you have that magic FBI cell pinger, it's not going to be good.
Yeah. And speaking of cell phone pinging, by and large, it just ain't possible for us. And it certainly ain't legal for most of us. So it's interesting you bring up that one topic, because on Pursuit Magazine, there's an article about cell phone pinging, and that is the most viewed article in the history of Pursuit Magazine. And there's also a podcast that we did with Sean Cole, one of the producers at This American Life, where he just kind of went down the rabbit hole of cell phone pinging and what can be done and what can't be done. And people love to listen to it. But I think a lot of people we go into the perception issue of private investigators, and people have these ideas of, we're out there doing these top secret, sneaky kind of things. And at the end of the day, most of the work I do is right out there in the open. I'm not trying to hide it. I can't be obtuse with my witnesses for criminal trials. I have to tell them who I am, who I'm working for, what I'm doing, all that kind of business. So yeah, it's important to drive traffic with things that actually make a difference. So if you think about it in terms, Tim, are you on Instagram at all?
Yes.
Okay. So I've got 2 Instagram accounts. One is Find PI. The other one is Exquisite Corpse Pose. Exquisite Corpse Pose is kind of my personal fun Instagram account. Find PI is the business account. And I really do despise posting stuff on either one of them, but you kind of have to be out there a little bit. But one of the things I try not to do is get really bogged down in, like, if I post something that I think is really magnificent, I really don't care how many people like it or click on it or anything like that. I'm happy when people do, but I don't want to get caught up in that Instagram profile. Like I'm an Instagram influencer, because number one, I'm not. And number two, influencing on Instagram is not going to bring paying private investigative work in my doors. And that's what we're looking for with the marketing. We need work that pays.
Right. Exactly. I mean, there's a
go
need
ahead.
to be on the platforms. I mean, Instagram being, but what are you doing on your Instagram? If you're driving profile views and you have a good, drive to another video or a way to get someone down the funnel that gets them there, you're selling a course or some other merchandise or some tool, or you have a, spy cam, great. But posting for the posting's sake it may build awareness, but most of us are not influencers or, at that level where, gosh, it's monetizable.
Right, right. Going back to company website, and we've kind of talked about content and design. You want content that's going to bring people that actually want to use your services. Talk to me about SEO a little bit. And I know this is one of the things that Reuben preaches quite often, but talk to me about SEO and give us a couple of things that you do to make sure that you stay kind of up there in the rankings.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think SEO is probably that term has most misunderstood and classified terms there is when it comes to internet marketing. So SEO, search engine optimization, is the Google and Bing algorithms that prioritize your website and search through organic, free search on the search engines. So we've hired people, we've done it internally, we've tried millions of different things, and I think what it comes down to is consistency of posting content, and having relevant pages that rank well. So if you go with someone like Reuben who knows how to structure the pages and knows how to prioritize things and to organize them in a way that the search engines like, that's your first step. But if you have a crappy website and it's not loading properly, there's so many pieces of SEO that we don't even know about that Google is changing all the time, that even Reuben would say, I don't even understand, or I just know I keep up with it, that you individually cannot know unless you are a web developer. And that's your thing. It's a full-time job. So the challenge is, I think what people say is SEO works or doesn't work, is that you need to spend a lot of time and resources if you want to do it really well. And it's cost prohibitive. But the baseline is get a solid website on a solid platform that's formatted well, has the right tags, and you understand how to update pages and create blog posts that are going to optimize your chances of being found. Now, going back to content and email, if you're writing pages and you're writing blogs that no one searches for, I don't care how well done they are, how well tagged they are, how whatever, no one's going to find them because no one's searching for it. So when you're looking at developing a topic, whether it's for a video or it's for your blog or for your website, you need to look and see what people actually search, because what we type in for criminal defense investigator to find how is not what the mom whose son just got arrested for, armed robbery is going to put in. You have to understand who your audience is and what they're going to look for. There's obviously some pages that obviously need to be there. If you do surveillance, you'd have information about surveillance or asset searches or background checks or whatever it is. But, understand it's a long grind. There's no shortcuts, and there's people competing for the space more and more. There are thousands of investigators throughout the US, and specifically where we are in Southern California, trying to get ranked in Orange County for certain words is difficult because those people have been sitting there and you're playing catch up, and they're prioritizing them because their pages load well, the traffic is good, and they know that they're, especially the people that are back in the day, the people that were buying ads on Google were also getting kind of prioritized placement because they knew that they could see what kind of traffic was going there. So while it was quote unquote free, there was some benefits to that. So that's right. My take on it. Kind of a long-winded thing, but it's a very complex thing. It's not as simple as people think.
No, it's not. And it I think it kind of falls in the category of you have to make a decision. Am I going to be a web design coding expert and do that, or am I going to be a private investigator and do that? And if you're going to be a private investigator, either know just enough about that business to be relevant and get in the searches, or hand it off to somebody that actually knows what they're doing. Let's talk a little bit about pay-per-click ads. How you feel about those? Do they work? What are your suggestions there?
Yeah. So again, another thing that kind of with second SEO, pay-per-click's probably the one thing that the second most confusing thing, which I think that in the service-related business, it's very difficult to again, do it yourself. We've tried both. We run paid ads. We've tried them ourselves, and managing that, it becomes so complex that it's very difficult to manage and not. So when people say, oh, it doesn't work, it does work. People used it. Amazon was one of the largest buyers of paid ads before they had their own platform and on Google. So it does work, but it's changed. And I think that unless, unless you know that, okay, I do domestic infidelity surveillance in Omaha, Nebraska, and my range is 50 miles outside of Omaha, and I can run the ad within 50 miles, and I know that I need to get 10 calls to get 5 leads to get 3 surveillances that are $1,000, and that's $3,000 in my pocket. And I know that those ads are going to cost me $250. Until you get to that point, it's hard to understand what to budget and what to plan and what the ROI is. So you got to drive it to what it is you're getting. So if you're going to do, for instance, employment background screening, that's an industry that we are in. Okay. We are not Hire Right. We are not First Advantage. We are not Sterling. Those people, for context, are spending $30,000, $40,000 a month on paid ads. So I'm not going to be able to compete with them in those areas. So I've got to figure out a different strategy, different keywords, different ways in, so they can outspend. If you're an investigator in an area where nobody is, hey, you may be able to buy surveillance for 35 cents a click all day long because there's nobody there. But how many leads are you actually getting? And that's the challenge. So it goes back to what's the ROI? And I think that the challenge is to, as an investigator, unless you're really well versed in conversions and building those kind of funnels, it's difficult to know if it's really paying off,
Right.
and to be able to do that consistently.
Right. It is the noon hour, 12 o'clock, about 2 minutes after. I'm going to take just a second and push PI education a little bit. We've got you here. We don't have a bully pulpit, but we do have a little bit of a pulpit. PI education offers online education for private investigators. We've been doing so for a long time, and we are, I think, the most well-used online school for private investigators. I can tell you we are working on new courses this year. Kim Green, the executive editor at Pursuit Magazine, or the editor at Pursuit Magazine, and I have been working tirelessly on some new courses for PI education, and we're excited about those. One of those courses is an ethics course, and we'll be talking about that a lot next month. The other one that we're working on fast and furious and have been for quite some time is criminal defense, and we're going to launch that in, March of this year. I'm excited about that course because it's a topic that I feel really passionate about. In the meantime, we have all of our other courses up at PI Education available for you to get your continuing education needs met. And for joining us today, we are going to offer a discount code BizDev, BIZDEV 2020, BizDev 2020. That's a discount code for PI Education. So if you go on to the PI Education website, select the course you want to take. When it asks for a discount code, key in BizDev 2020, and you'll get a discount. So thank you for joining us, Tim. We're back, and I can't thank you enough for being here today. This is really informative, and it's, we chatted week before last with Jason Pfeiffer from Inc. Magazine about, or Entrepreneur Magazine, about marketing for private investigators, and it was a fantastic conversation. But Jason said a couple of times in the conversation, he said, I'm out of my wheelhouse. I'm not an investigator. I don't know exactly what you guys do. Tim Santoni is an investigator, and he's a marketing whiz. So let's get back into it and find out a little bit more about some best practices for private investigators to actually get business in the door. Tim, we've talked about pay-per-click, we've talked about SEO. To blog or not to blog, how do you feel about blogging?
Again, I think that if writing's your thing, and a lot of investigators it is, that it should come naturally. For an SEO perspective, it's great, and it's a great prong in your content creation strategy. So it helps you on the SEO front. It also keeps you relevant, and learning how to update your website or your blogs yourself. So if you're new to that and you're using WordPress and learning the ins and outs of that, it's important. But also, I think that it gives you content to put out in your email newsletter, and to put on your other channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever else. It's a great way to have content for distribution. And again, if writing's not your thing, you have a podcast or you have a video, just get that transcribed. There's a lot of services that will transcribe it. Now you have a blog, or you even segment it, and it doesn't need to be long. It could be a story about a case you're working, something brief. It doesn't need to be 1,500 words. With a blog could be a lot of things. It could be best practices for getting a witness to answer the door, or things like that you come across. And I think the easiest way to do that is just listen to what your clients are asking you, those questions, and answer them, right?
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
But we tend to overcomplicate it. And I think it's necessary, whether it's a blog or other content, it's important.
Yeah. Aaron Price asks, thoughts about guerrilla marketing, such as searching Twitter, Facebook, et cetera, for people in your area who have questions about investigative services, and then reaching out to them with relevant content.
If you're able to spend the time and deep dive into that, and they're asking those questions, then hey, have at it. What I found with that, a lot of times it's consumers who are looking for cell pings or cell phone records or GPS tracking. So there can often be some illegal request, things that aren't possible.
Sure.
But definitely it's a way to look and to see what the trends are, right? To see what people are looking for. What are they searching in there? So you may find they want to know about GPS and pinging and all that kind of stuff. So create an article that's called GPS cell phone pings and why they're inappropriate, and talk about why they're inappropriate, and deliver some value, because people are searching for it. So that's a tactic. I've also heard about trolling for Yelp reviews and businesses that are getting bad reviews, and then contacting the business owner and say, hey, I saw you had some bad Yelp reviews. I'd love to make like a mystery shop or undercover visit and tell you what I observe, and maybe there's some things that you could change to help change those reviews. So that's one other tactic you could employ. But again, any kind of outreach to where you can understand better what the customer or consumer is searching for or looking for is going to help you to customize your message and maybe offer a service that you weren't aware of.
Right. John Latcher says, I spent my time doing face-to-face, get out of the office. I take my business cards and brochures, get away from the computer. And I don't disagree with him at all. There are a number of benefits to having a web presence. I think we have to, at this day and age, have a web presence.
Mm-hmm.
But I use my website primarily as a verification source. If I'm talking to a new client, they can check me out and see who I am and what I do. I don't update it as often as I should, but it's there and it's a verification tool. I don't use it so much as an outreach. I do like John's idea of getting out of the office and meeting people. It's a great way to get business. Here's the thing. It's woefully inefficient. It just, you can, and it occurs to me that the Twitter and Facebook questions, guerrilla marketing idea, it's an interesting idea. I like the notion, but it seems like it also might be woefully inefficient. It's just one of those things that you can spend a lot of time running down that rabbit hole and maybe get one new client. And one of the things that Brian Willingham and I've talked about on a number of occasions is that tinfoil hat crowd.
Mm-hmm.
The general public that is looking for someone to ping a cell phone or put a GPS tracker on a car, something like that. These are things. In California, is it illegal to put a GPS tracker on a car?
It's illegal if you don't own the car.
Okay.
So
okay,
in most situations it is.
Sure. There are certain states where the boundaries of legality as far as GPS trackers are different,
yes,
state by state. I'm not comfortable with it. It's not a thing that I feel comfortable doing for a couple of reasons. Number one, in Tennessee, there are some serious legal issues with it, and people try to get around those legal issues. And every time someone says, I know it's not legal, but if you do this, this, and this, that scares me. Number two, I think it makes us not as present in the investigation as we should be. So if I put a tracker on a car and I've got 6 investigators kind of watching where the tracker's going and then showing up at a space, as opposed to having investigators in the field doing the surveillance, I just think you're more present, you're more there when you're actually in the surveillance mode. There are a number of things we can do as private investigators to market our businesses. Somebody on the YouTube channel just posted up, I use car magnets, got 6 clients, made 12,000. That's a great idea. If you're doing the kind of work where you can put a car magnet on, I'm going to guess if you're doing surveillance work, you're not going to have a car magnet that says, I spy private investigative services on your car. It's just going to kind of blow your gig. But if you're doing other work, sure, that's not a bad idea. There are all kinds of creative ways to build brand awareness. I think, and Tim, tell me how you feel about this. I think I try to focus my marketing efforts on things that, how do I say this, are not unclassy. I try to put the front of the house message out there that I am a professional. I dress like a professional, I act like a professional, I interact with professionals. I don't want to do things that are too out there cheesy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, and I'm with you 100%. That kind of leads us into the next topic point, which is we talked about, networking and how to interact. And I think it was John who said, I think it makes sense to go around and meet with attorneys and face to face, to get away from my computer. I don't worry about a website and social media. 100%. Like, I mean, but the challenge and what I found is the time, and what Hal mentions is really inefficient, right? To set up one meeting, drive 30 minutes, have a lunch for an hour, drive back, the follow up. How many times can you do that in a week, in a year, to drive what you need? So what I found is that that's important to supplement, but networking groups that are really efficient and effective have been really powerful. And part of it is being present and being interactive and being there. But the other part is what Hal said, is that if you want to be perceived as a step above, as more classy, more sophisticated, charge more, you got to look the part, you got to dress the part, you got to talk the part. And when they go to their website, it needs to look, it all needs to be in step with what you're trying to drive. And you can go, I've been to many meetings, not to stereotype investigators, but you walk in and they're in jeans and an untucked shirt, and you can pick them out, right? And if you're working with attorneys, the biggest compliment you can get is, oh, are you an attorney? If you're an attorney network, oh no, actually I do investigations. Oh, great. You're already in the club. Dress like them, act like them, behave like them. I wrote a blog about this. If you're going to go to a courthouse, right? I'm sure you go to courthouses, Hal, right? You don't go there in shorts. Go there in a suit. They'll assume you're an attorney. You go to the attorney line through security. You can go to the clerk. The clerk's going to be more responsive, especially in California where clerks don't pay attention to consumers. You need to separate yourself. And then when the way you conduct yourself, you can pick up business that way, because they're going to say, oh, they're a step above. And so I think that that's important. And again, networking, in my opinion, is the fastest way to scale and grow your audience beyond face-to-face and supplement with face-to-face meetings, because you can get in front of 40 or 50 people in one morning or one lunch, where it could take you a whole year to get 40 or 50 lunch meetings with attorneys, that you're targeting.
Sure. And some of the things that I've found very useful for criminal defense work. Pretty much every state in the country has a criminal defense lawyers association. In Texas, it's TCDLA, Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. In Tennessee, it's Tennessee Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. But those associations are chock full of attorneys that are doing the kind of work that I want to help them do. So I go to those meetings, I reach out to those people. That's my marketing list. When there's a new attorney who shows up on the Tennessee Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers list, I will reach out to them in person with an email. It's a way to kind of narrow down and focus your marketing efforts. But though they also host meetings and seminars throughout the year, and you can sponsor those things. You can pay some money to be a sponsor and set up a booth at that organization's meeting, which is a fantastic thing to do. Rochelle Davis out of Missouri is one of the writers for Pursuit Magazine, an investigator, fantastic young lady. She wrote a story about hosting or sponsoring a lawyer event, and she got really good traction out of it. It's not a bad idea. Also, just being a member of those organizations can be very helpful. The other thing, Tim, and I have a notion the answer is yes, but have you ever spoken to a lawyer's organization?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the next point, is that it's not, once you get involved with these organizations, networking organizations, trial lawyers, personal injury lawyers, wherever it is, they're looking for speakers and content at these seminars. And so that's a focus. I probably speak at least once a month to different organizations, Inns of Court, trade organization, whatever it is. They want to know what's going on. They need to fill those slots. So get to them, make contact with those people that set those up, do it in advance. They usually plan them out about a year in advance. So if you're in, latter part of the year, they're planning out for the next year, but let them know, hey, I can be available on a moment's notice if somebody cancels, and it's a great, and then, when you go there, record, bring your camera, your point and shoot, record that thing. And now you have a video of you speaking, put it on your website. And now you can, people say, do you speak? And you say, yeah, yeah. Well, what do you speak about? Oh, here's all the different topics. Here's all the different videos. I don't have horns coming out of my head. This is what I look like. Here's me in a suit. Like, I showed up on time, and, how many events have we been to where the speaker's horrible, right? But so you want to refine that and get better at it. But the only way to get better at it, when I started, I was terrible. I was nervous. I was jumpy. I had no presentation. Like, they're not paying you. It's free. So you might as well be the center of attention. And so if it's a pay to play situation, you got a sponsor to do it, then great. But if you can get invited, it's an amazing strategy. And the other secret I'll give away is that most law firms of all shapes and sizes have what they call partner meetings or associate trainings on a weekly or monthly basis. Okay. They're bringing content to the associates and paralegals and attorneys that are learning and growing in their practice, and they need people. So if you have a relationship with them, hey, do you guys have any partner meetings or referral meetings or client meetings? We have a topic about investigative training for paralegals, or whatever. Would you want to invite us in? Oh yeah, that'd be great. We need that. Blah blah blah. They have them. They need to fill them. They're there. You just need to ask. So there's a lot of different ways to get speaking with trade associations, lawyer organizations, networking organizations. Even go to your Rotary or chamber if you want to get started. Very basically, they need speakers, and it's a great way to kind of cut your teeth. And if you do a good job, the people that go there will spread the word and get you other speaking engagements.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing about public speaking. It can be terrifying. The first time you do it, you're going to have your heart's going to be right up to here, and your heart's going to be thumping really loudly. You may even, turn red and sweat a little bit. I'm speaking from personal experience. But the more often you stand up in front of a crowd and do that thing, the better you get and the more comfortable you become. So I have found that when I say yes to things that are a little bit frightening to me, 9 times out of 10, it helps me out. It makes me better at that thing. We have a couple of notes that I want to get to from the crowd here on YouTube. Deborah Cersei Frazier says, what is a good networking group to meet attorneys? I've tried chamber groups without much success. They just don't attend any of the events. Tim and I were just talking about, there are lawyers groups. In Nashville, there's a group of attorneys that do nothing but divorce work, and they meet once a month. And they share not case stuff, obviously, because there are a lot of times they're in combat in court, but they're friends in real life. But they share resources and talk about, this is a good person to do this. This is a good person to do that. Find out if those groups are meeting in your area. And if they are, offer to speak for them, offer to tell them what it is you do as a private investigator. Stephanie, our manager at PI Education, and I think everybody in the room knows the name Stephanie Mitchell. She is the backbone of PI Education. She keeps things running, and she keeps me in check and on track. Stephanie says, reach out to the paralegals. And this is some of the best advice I've ever heard. Paralegals are often rode hard and put up wet. They get hammered all day long at work, but they're the gatekeepers. They're the ones that you have to get through to get to the attorney. So if you befriend those people, make them feel important as they are, and offer them solutions, then you have a better chance of getting in front of the attorney. So reach out to paralegals.
Yeah, and to the question about the chamber, it was Steph who asked the question about the chamber. So in the
Deborah
article that
Deborah Cersei Fraser.
yeah, so Deborah, so I mean, the chamber, if the chamber events are not getting you what you want, look for another organization. So in organizations like the chamber and BNI, depending on where they are and how actively, they could be a waste of time or they could be just a way to, but when you're there, ask those people what other places they network at. And when those attorneys show up, hey, where else networking activities do you do? Oh, I do this, I do that. Oh, can I join you? Find out what's working for them. Other like-minded professionals, so CPAs, attorneys, investigators, anyone that's offering professional services, ask what they're doing. They'll tell you, oh, hey, I've got this really good BNI group, or I've got this, whatever, I've been doing this, and they'll share it with you. But the chamber events is very B2C often. And so you're gonna have time. Attorneys are often in court. So morning meetings, if it's morning, they get called into court on next party or get whatever, they're not gonna be there. So look for lunchtime and evening groups because they tend to be more free and they're always, like Hal mentioned, have a cocktail. And get like Hal said, the paralegals control the office. I was shocked to find out that we couldn't get into a law firm because the paralegal was getting gift cards and tickets and to football games and stuff from this other investigation firm, ethical and unethical, however you think about that. But they were the one blocking us, even though the partners are like, you really should use Santoni. So Hal's dead on. Make their life easier, make them feel loved, and they will go a long way. They are stepped on, they are pushed around, they work really hard, and typically they get no recognition.
Sure. And just a couple other things from Stephanie, and she posted this on the YouTube channel, but I want to get it out there on the webinar. Local bar associations, trial lawyer association, paralegal associations, these are all great things to look for to find networking opportunities. And, you know, each one of these groups may have a different process. So you may have to do a little homework on your own to find out how to get in front of those people. But that's, you know, that's some suggestions. Local bar associations. Tim mentioned the Inns of Courts. Inns of Courts is typically going to be a little bit more of a prestigious group of attorneys. I think they're invitation only to the group kind of business. If you can speak at one of those Inns of Courts meetings, it'll go a long way. Those are the guys that are out there and the girls that are out there doing the work and making a difference out there. So, you know, look for those kind of opportunities. We could go on and on all day long about the different possibilities for getting in front of other human beings to share your message. One of the things I wanted to get to, because Tim, I'll be honest with you, I don't understand LinkedIn. It makes no sense to me. I go on there once every now and then. But there's so many people that I have, what do they call it on LinkedIn? It's not friends, but connections. There's so many connections. I'm like, I don't know most of these people. I can't know that many people. Talk to us about how to use LinkedIn.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a place that I live and breathe on. So, you know, first step is establishing your profile, you know, updating and making sure that you're optimized and that your title and so forth is correct in your contact information. But really, it's a platform of interacting, just like you would in a networking group, a chamber event, a bar association. You got to interact there. You got to post content. You got to comment. You got to share stuff. You need to engage. We use LinkedIn a lot from an account management tool because, again, like I was saying earlier, a lot of lawyers move from firm to firm. So that's a good way to keep track of where they've been. Also, it's a research tool. Before we connect, I want to know where somebody went to school, or, you know, before I have a meeting with them, I want to know if they're, you know, a Bruin or a Trojan out here. And so that's a big issue in Southern California. I want to know where they went to law school because a lot of lawyers are it's very prestigious. You know, if they went to Harvard, that's different than Western State. And, you know, in other states, you know, similarly, you want to kind of know where they went to school and where they worked. Did they work in the prosecutor's office and doing, you know, were they a DA before they went into private practice? You know, where have they been and hobbies and things. So I use LinkedIn before every single networking meeting, event, coffee. I make sure that I've reviewed that person I'm meeting with profile very in-depthly, so I have something to interject in the conversation in the event that I need some, you know, research. Also, most people assume that as an investigator, we've done background research before, so you probably should do it because they're going to think, oh, you know, you've already run a background check on me before we even met. Aside from that, you know, publishing content on a regular basis. For us, it's blogs, it's our Santoni stories that just talk about like a micro blog about what we're doing in the videos. Is significant in terms of the reach. So, we have our website doesn't get a ton of traffic, not like Brian Willingham's does in terms of the number of views, but we had a blog post that we wrote that we published on to LinkedIn, and within a week, we're up to almost 2,000 views on that post. So it's a great way to get eyeballs in front of the right folks. But also the search capabilities. If you're looking for a civil litigator in Lubbock that works at a certain firm, it's right there. As B2B folks, LinkedIn is like your prospecting tool. So if I want to know anyone that ever worked at Latham and Watkins, you can find it. Or you want to know who the current partners are at another firm, it's all there. Insurance folks aren't as up to speed on LinkedIn. Lawyers are becoming more and more understanding of how they can drive business. And you've got to interact, you've got to post, you got to comment, you got to engage yourself. Easy. Congratulate people on their birthdays because LinkedIn's got their birthdays. So if you want to send out birthday cards, you've got their birthdays. If you want to, when they get a new position, great. Also, we talked about building your list. LinkedIn has everyone's email address. So if you need to get a hold of somebody or message somebody, great. I find people that I know well message me on LinkedIn over emailing me. Hey, let's get together for a coffee. They're not texting me or emailing me. They're just messaging me on LinkedIn because they saw something on there that triggered them to actually reach out.
Right.
So you can go nuts with it, but there's tons of great data. There's tons of information getting to their websites from their profiles when they move from place to place. But I mean, it's, like I say, I'm on LinkedIn probably 10, 15 times a day. I mean,
yeah, it's a wealth of information. And again, I'm a bit of a Luddite. I like to write with a pencil and a piece of paper. I have graduated into the year 2020. I now use an iPad with a paper touch screen and one of those stylus pens, and it's great, but it's taken me a while to get there. Let's not be upset that I'm late to the party. Let's just celebrate that I've showed up at all. Another thing that I've found, Tim, is you mentioned birthday cards and stuff like that. I've got, and I'll pull this out. I have a personal stationery. I don't know if you can see that on the screen or put it up here like this. Yeah, there we go. A handwritten note. Doesn't matter if your handwriting is atrocious, as mine is. A handwritten note to somebody on the occasion of their birthday, on the occasion of the birth of a child, on the occasion of moving to a new office, anything like that. A handwritten note goes a long way. It really impresses people just because nobody does it anymore. Nobody writes handwritten notes. So if you're a little bit afraid of the tech business and you're not totally sure you're going to be able to get your head around SEO and websites and LinkedIn and all of this stuff, a good old pen and paper goes a long way. But at the end of the day, and I think Tim has come back to this again and again, all of this requires you to be involved in the conversation. You have to put yourself out there and you have to interact with people.
Yeah. Well, and the part about the cards, right? So in our business, anyone that refers us gets a thank you card and or potentially a gift card. So attorneys can't take kickbacks or commissions from non-attorneys, right? But you can send them a gift card or you send them a thank you card. And every single attorney that refers us something gets a handwritten thank you card from me, right? Or you can use a thing like Send Out Cards. It does it for you. You can upload your signature and they'll send it. There's other services that you can link on gift cards, but direct mail and cards are coming back because no one gets them. So when they get an odd sized envelope in the mail, they're going to open it, right? Mm-hmm. There's no filter on that, like they put it on their desk. And you need to, and guess what? When I go to networking events and I thank them for the referrals, they always say, thank you for the card. Thank you for the card. And we do it every single time. Because guess what? If referrals are the lifeblood of your business, which as an investigator, they probably are because attorneys are your best source. Mm-hmm. After you've done a good job, you've thanked them, you should feel confident and comfortable enough to ask them for referrals to people that they trust. And you need to behave like they would. they have to send formal engagement letters. They have to send, they can't letters when they can't represent people. And just by doing that, I probably send out 3 or 4 thank you cards a day. It's really easy. Just scribble it on there and put it in the mail. Like, it takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of tackling all these different things that we talked about in a consistent way that make a difference when it comes to quote unquote business development. And I would argue that thank you cards and thank you gift cards are business development.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, we have spent the past full hour talking about business development and marketing for private investigators. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hal, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. I'm going to go ahead and go over here and stop the live feed. There we go.